Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you step by step how to change your own oil and oil filter. So let's go ahead and get started. Now the first thing that you want to make sure is that your vehicle is on level ground. You don't want it on an incline or a decline. You want all the oil to be able to flow properly. So you want to make sure that you're on level ground to do that. Now the vehicle that we're going to be doing here in this video is a front wheel drive vehicle. We have the oil pan in the front. If you're dealing with a mid-engine or a rear-engine car, sometimes your oil pan is going to be in the back, and of course that would just be reversed, what we're talking about as far as for the elevating when we get into that. But once you have it on level ground, then the next thing you want to do is you want to be able to see what kind of oil your vehicle takes, as far as is it 5W20, 10W30, all stuff like that. And for that we can check the owner's manual and get details from that. If you open your manual to the maintaining your vehicle section or your maintenance section, or you can always go in the back and look at the glossary and find oil. You'll notice here for this particular vehicle, for engine oil, it tells you exactly what's required, which is 5W20 oil. Now in the event that your manual does not say that, or if you don't have the manual, you can also check it by opening up the hood, and I'll show you here. With the hood open, if you look on the top of the oil cap right here, you'll see printed the oil required for your vehicle. In this case, we have 5W20, so that's what we're going to be going to the store and purchasing. So now we're ready to head there, get the oil filter and the proper oil for this vehicle. A lot of stores, as shown here, like Walmart, they'll have these little computer terminals. If not, they'll have a catalog that you can flip through, and you're basically going to look up the make, model, and year of your vehicle and the engine type. That will tell you what oil filter is used as far as the part number, and a lot of times you have a pretty big variety like they have here. You have the generic, which is the Super Tech at Walmart. It's a lot cheaper. And then you do have the different levels of Fram filters as well. Like you have the Fram Extra Guard, you have different ones higher than that, other brands. Each one costs different based on the quality. A lot of times what I'll do is either pick the regular Fram, which as you can see here, you're looking at $3.88. Now, if we head down to the generic, it's almost $1 cheaper, so you have to choose. Next, when you're ready to purchase the oil, you can choose between the high mileage full synthetic, regular full synthetic, or the standard oil. But you want to make sure that you get the right number, the 5W20 or 5W30, whatever is required for your vehicle. Now, just like with the oil filters, there's different brands and qualities. You have the generic, the Super Tech at Walmart, or you have Mobil 1, Quaker State, things like that. Price is going to vary. So here's an overview of all the things that you'll need to do your oil change. First of all, as we just saw, you will need the oil, so it'll be specific to what your vehicle takes. As we saw with this one, it's the 5W20. I like to use the full synthetic. I always convert my vehicles over to that just because it lasts longer, it breaks down less. Next, you will need some kind of a rag for cleanup, things like that. You will have to clean the drain plug, and if anything spills, you want to have that. So that's a good idea. Next, you are going to need some kind of a drain pan or oil pan. You are going to need your filter. I always go with just the generic Super Tech one, but you can pick whatever works for your vehicle. And then on top of that, the next thing that you are going to need is you will need a ratchet with the appropriate socket for the size of your drain plug. So you will have to find out that size. It's easier if you can get the front elevated a little bit. So what I like to do is just take a jack, because you don't want to drive it up on the ramps, because then you're going to need to level it back down as you're actually draining the oil. You don't want to be running the car on empty with no oil in it. So what I do is I jack the front end up, go ahead and remove the drain plug, get the filter off, and as it's draining, then I can lower it back down flat to let all of it drain out, and then I can raise it back up to put everything back in place, and then lower it back down and refill it. So let's go ahead and get it up in the air so we have better access underneath. That should be high enough, so now we can go underneath and we can access everything. Coming underneath from the front, if we slide in here, we'll get a view of what we're going to be getting into. So start off here, this is your oil pan right here, and your drain plug is located. It'll either be facing towards the back or front, and your oil filter will be in the vicinity, either side mounted or upright as this one. But let me get another shot here so we can see this better from the other side. Here we go. So you can see it there. There's our drain plug, there's our oil filter, and there's our the oil pan. So those are all the things that we're going to be accessing to do this. I'm going to go ahead now, hook the socket up to it. Give it a good pull. Sometimes these can be on there kind of tight. All right, got it loose here. So the next thing you want to do is get the bucket in place. All right, so now that we have it loose, I went ahead and put the pan underneath for the oil. We'll go ahead and take it off by hand, and then we'll pull it quickly, let it drain out. So here we go. Slide that a little bit better that way. And here we are. Boom. There you go. We'll let that drain out, and then we'll come back and remove the filter. While it's draining, I'm going to go ahead and lower the car, so that way we can make sure it all comes out. You don't want to leave it up on an angle and then run the risk of old oil staying in there. So we'll take it down to the ground, let it finish dripping, then we'll put the plug back in it, and then take out the filter. It's almost done dripping out. You can see everything is in that oil pan there. So we're ready to go ahead and put the plug back in. I'm going to go ahead and put that in, wipe that off, and then we'll remove the filter. What I do is just wipe off the drain plug real good, get any residue and stuff off, clean it real nice before we put it back on. Let's go ahead, we're going to just hand tighten that in right now. And then once that's in here, I'm going to go ahead, wipe off. Let's wipe this off here. There we are. And we'll slide this a little bit out of the way so I can get the socket and ratchet in here to tighten that up. And go ahead and tighten that. Get it. You don't want to over tighten it, but you do want it tight enough so that way nothing's going to be leaking out. So there we are. Now let's remove the filter. Now to remove the filter, a lot of times you can just do them by hand, especially if you're the one that did the last oil change, because they shouldn't be over tightened. If you've taken it to like a Jiffy Lube, places like that, sometimes they over tighten them. So if you just get a nice clean grip on it, like this one here is coming right off, great. If not, you can use, they make oil filter sockets and wrenches that can take it off. But this one's coming off good. So there we are. You can see it rotating. I'm going to bring the pan back underneath because that's going to start dripping. Pull that. Bring it down slowly. Here it comes. You'll let it drip a little bit, and then we'll pop it off. Letting it drip there. And I think we're ready now to actually go ahead and remove it all the way. Pull this down. And we'll unscrew it. All right. Okay, so we have the filter off. I'm going to go ahead now and clean around where it screws in. Make sure that there's no debris and residue. And then we'll go ahead and prime the new filter, get it screwed in, and then we'll lower the car and then go ahead and fill it up with the 4.5 quarts of oil that it takes if you are also doing the filter with it. So let's go ahead and do that. Always want to make sure that you examine that housing area where the oil filter screws in. Sometimes the gasket from the filter can be stuck behind and can cause an issue when you try to apply the new one and cause some major leaking. So make sure that there's nothing there causing any obstructions. This one here actually looks pretty clean, but I'm still going to go ahead and take a rag and just kind of wipe that area off before we put the new one in. Just take the rag, wipe it off there. Make sure it's clean. All right. Now we're ready to put the new filter in. We're going to go ahead, we're going to remove the filter. And what we're going to do is what's known as priming the filter. We're going to go ahead and fill it with oil, and then we're going to go ahead and just lubricate this gasket here before we go ahead and screw it in place. So let's go ahead and do that. You want to fill it, give it a little bit of time to go down. Not everyone does this. To be honest, I don't do it all the time, but it is not a bad idea, because if you put the filter in without priming it, the engine runs dry just for a little bit of time because there's no oil in here. Like I said, I don't do it all the time, but it's a good practice to do that. Then I'll just take my finger and just kind of lubricate here around the gasket. And now we're ready to go ahead and put that in. Go ahead and bring this in. Slide it right in place. And go ahead and take it all the way up. And you only want to hand tighten it. You don't want to over tighten it. So we have it in there. Go ahead and get a rag so we get a good grip on it. We're going to tighten it on. And you want to get it as tight as you can, and then go ahead and hand tighten it one complete turn around. There we go. All by hand. Like I said, you don't want to over tighten it, but you do want to tighten enough so it's not leaking. Funnel in. Okay. You don't want to overfill it, so what I do is get it close to the 4.5 range, and then we'll check the levels and then top it off accordingly. So we have close to about maybe 3/4 of a quart left. Now keep in mind we did prime the filter already, so a little bit of oil went in there, and you're at 4.5 quarts maximum capacity with the filter. So we need to keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to check the levels on the dipstick and see where we're at before we put any more, because we don't want to overfill it. Let's go ahead and get a reading on it. And see if you can see that. But we are right on point. Perfect. So that's it. Let's go ahead and start it up. After you run the car a little bit, it's good to let the levels kind of settle back down. Check it again. And once everything circulates through, make sure that the levels are still good, and then top it off accordingly if need be. With your old oil, you want to make sure you put it into a storage container or in some kind of container and dispose of it properly. You don't want to be dumping it outside or putting it down the drain. Make sure you find a local facility where you can dispose of your oil properly. Okay, well that pretty much wraps up this video on how to change your own oil and oil filter. I hope that this video was informative for you. I hope it helped you out with any projects you're working on. If you're able to do it on your own, you can save a lot of money, and you can ensure that you're putting the quality of oil in that you want. Sometimes, unfortunately, some places will tell you what they're putting in there, but it may not be the case. So it's always best to do it yourself. That way you know exactly what's going on. Please send me any questions or comments you may have. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.